up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon. 6 months into her 5-year term, President Park Geun-hye is considered to have made some noticeable progresses on diplomacy and inter-Korean relations, but less so at home, including job growth and social welfare. In a bid to stabilize the housing market, the government plans to unveil a set of measures this week, including increasing the supply of houses for rent and cutting interest rates for homebuyers. Plus, the Syrian government agrees to allow a UN team to investigate the Assad regime's alleged chemical attacks on civilians. But a senior U.S. official calls the probe too late to be credible. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yusan here in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Brew. And we start with the symbolic milestone for South Korean President Park Geun-hye. Sunday marks 6 months since President Park took office as the country's first female leader.
There have been areas the president has been commanded on, as well as issues that have stirred up heated debate here in Korea. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju wraps up President Park's performance so far.
More than half of the people here in the nation believe President Park is doing a good job. Her approval rating has steadily increased since her inauguration in February to 54%, according to a recent survey released by Gallup Korea on August 16th. President Park's North Korea policy is where she earned the most points during the past 6 months. She consistently maintained a firm stance against Pyongyang even after the North unilaterally shut down the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex in April. She made it clear that there will be no compromises made on such provocative behavior. Her strategy eventually drew the North back to the negotiating table, which resulted in a joint agreement between the two Koreas, stating there will be no further halts at the business park and the two will work towards globalization of the complex.
저는 이번 합의를 계기로 과거 남북 관계의 잘못된 관행을 바로잡고 상생의 새로운 남북 관계가 시작되기를 바람하지 않습니다.
President Park also proved her strength in diplomacy. During the bilateral summits with U.S. President Barack Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping, President Park was able to secure full support from both countries on her push for a trust-building process with North Korea. However, she saw her lowest approval rating in April in the early weeks after she took office due to botched nominations for key members of her new administration. The tax code overhaul announced earlier this month also faced strong backlash from the opposition party and much of the public that criticized the proposal for increasing the burden on the middle class. The Finance Ministry quickly put forth a revised version of the tax code proposal, but many experts criticized President Park's economic team for being ignorant on what helps people's livelihoods. The presidential office of Cheongwade explained that if the first 6 months were a period to set up the blueprint for the Park administration, it will now speed up its efforts to push ahead with actual measures to revitalize the economy and create more jobs. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
In another reflection of President Park's principle-oriented North Korea policy, South Korea said that prospects for an inter-Korean leaders summit is unlikely at present. Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae told state broadcaster KBS Sunday that issues surrounding the two countries cannot be substantially dealt with in one stroke. Ryu also stressed that Seoul's economic sanctions on Pyongyang following the North's torpedo attack on the South warship Cheonan in 2010 will stay intact until the regime starts taking responsible measures. The minister also said the reopening of the Mount Kumgang resort, suspended after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean soldier in 2008, would depend on the North's guarantee of safety of South Korean tourists visiting the resort. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is thought to have decided to reshuffle his military chiefs after reportedly reaching a conclusion to protect the country's sovereignty and security. Although it did not exactly state what that conclusion was, the North Korean Central News Agency reported Monday that Kim has brought up issues related to the organization of the military during a conference with the Central Military Commission. The specific topics of discussion and when or where the conference was held were not stated in the report. But experts say the reorganization of military personnel could have come ahead of one of North Korea's most important holidays, the Sungun Day on Sunday, which is a day to underscore the country's military-first ideology. And back here in Seoul, the prosecution's investigation into the whereabouts of former president and military dictator Chun Doo-hwan's hidden assets continues. On Sunday, authorities said they seized a bank account of Chun's nephew Lee Jae-hong, who is suspected of keeping millions of dollars of the former leader's slush funds. Lee is accused of managing the Chun family's real estate properties and playing a key role in illegally laundering the family's money. Chun's two eldest sons, Jae-guk and Jae-yong, are also expected to be summoned sometime this week. This is part of the prosecution's efforts to collect what the ex-president has yet to pay back to the state. In 1997, he was ordered to pay a fine of some $200 million for staging a coup and accepting bribes.
As the nation's housing rental prices keep soaring while the property market remains sluggish, the Korean government has rolled up its sleeves to help citizens afford decent homes. Later this week, the government is expected to put forth measures that include expanding the National Housing Fund and lowering interest rates on housing loans. Our Han Da-eun tells us more.
Amid Korea's ongoing slump in the property market, more and more homebuyers are turning to Jeonse, Korea's unique housing system of lump sum rental deposits, instead of buying their own homes, even if they can afford it. The popularity of long-term housing leases have sent Jeonse prices skyrocketing, and it's no news that an average Korean has to go through extreme difficulties in finding a decent place to live. To ease the burden on its people, the government has stepped in. According to the government's latest report on measures to stabilize the housing market, the National Housing Fund will be expanded, while the interest rate on housing loans will be lowered to encourage more people to buy homes. Currently, a married couple with a combined income of $40,000 looking to purchase a home that costs less than $270,000 receives government aid of up to $90,000 at an annual interest rate of 4%. Now the government is reviewing ways to expand that support so that married couples with higher incomes can afford to purchase more expensive homes at lower interest rates. Market watchers are welcoming the government's possible new measures, saying that encouraging potential home buyers with purchasing power to buy their homes is the quickest way at this point to revamp the sagging housing market. The government also plans to increase this year's planned supply of Jeonse and other housing from the current 36,000 units to much more. Details of the measures will likely be announced Wednesday. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
A new report shows 7 out of the top 10 conglomerates in the country cut back on their investments by about 8% in the first half of the year. That's according to CEO Score Monday, which said the top 10's total investment amounted to $32 billion in the first half of the year, 8% lower than the same period last year. The 3 that increased their investments were Hyundai Motor, POSCO and Hyundai Heavy Industries. The cutbacks come as the Korean economy shows few signs of exiting its prolonged period of low growth. In the face of mounting concerns about radioactive contamination in fish products, the Korean government has decided to intensify inspections into fish caught in its waters as well as imported products. Kim Min-ji has the details.
The Korean government has decided to expand its inspection into fishery products as more and more consumers have expressed concerns about whether fish products are safe to eat due to the leak of radioactive water from the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. Starting next month, the government will double the number of inspections on 4 types of fish from the ocean: pollock, mackerel, pike, tuna, and shark, to 90 from the current 45. This intensified checkup is likely to continue until the end of this year. The government will also expand inspections into imported fish products. 6 species of fish, including plaice and pollock, which are usually caught in the Pacific Ocean, will undergo 2 tests each week from the current 1 round. Fish products from Japan will receive inspections each time they are declared. Meanwhile, the National Fishery Products Quality Management Service said that 17 products, which underwent 261 tests for radioactive contamination, were all declared safe to consume as of last Tuesday. The government will post the inspection results of the fish products on the websites of the Fishery Management Service and the Maritime Affairs Ministry twice a week. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
The United States seems like it's stepping up preparations for a possible military response to last week's alleged chemical weapons attack in Syria. It said the Syrian government's offer to let UN officials to review the affected areas was too late to be credible. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the latest.
In a move seen to be stepping closer to possible U.S. military action in Syria, the Obama administration said that the Syrian government probably used chemical weapons against civilians in the suburbs of Damascus last week. A senior official of the U.S. administration said Sunday that President Obama is now weighing how to respond. In a written statement, the official called a Syrian promise to allow United Nations officials to inspect the chemical weapons attack sites, quote, too late to be credible. Syria and the UN agreed to the inspection starting Monday, 5 days after the alleged attack. The official made it clear the Syrian government's move was not enough, adding that if it had nothing to hide, it would have let the UN officials inspect the sites right after the attack was first reported. The statement went on to say that evidence could have been destroyed because of constant bombing and the regime's other actions in the area. Around 1 year ago, President Obama said the use of chemical weapons by Syrian government forces was a, quote, red line, despite mounting criticism from congressional Republicans and others for failing to respond more strongly to the attack. The president has remained reluctant to intervene in another war in the region after 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Britain and France have both advocated a strong response if the U.S. decides to take military action. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Egypt's former dictator Hosni Mubarak and 3 Muslim Brotherhood leaders were in the dock Sunday for separate trials, but on similar charges of involvement in the killing of protesters. Mubarak, who was released from jail last week and placed under house arrest in a military hospital, sat in a wheelchair in a courtroom cage with his sons and former interior minister. Mubarak was given a life sentence last year for complicity in the killing of protesters during the 2011 revolt against him, but an appeals court ordered a retrial. The judge adjourned the case until September 14th. Also Sunday, Muslim Brotherhood leader Mohammed Badieh and 5 other members of the Islamist group had their hearings postponed until October 29th. They are accused in relation to clashes outside the Brotherhood's Cairo headquarters on June 30th that left 9 people dead. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is mulling over his legal options to broaden the role of the country's self-defense forces, enabling it to defend not only itself but also its allies. There's a wave of opposition to this in Japan, with nationwide polls showing the majority are against Abe's move. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more.
The Abe administration is making moves to alter Japan's constitution in a way that makes it possible for the country to aid an ally under attack. Kyodo News Agency reported Saturday that Tokyo is seeking a new bill to allow its self-defense forces the right to collective self-defense. The report also added that Abe is expected to even go as far as to try to reinterpret the current laws if the original plan of drafting a new bill fails to win approval. The current law in Japan stipulates that the country's military cannot engage in combat operations and are strictly dispatched to defend the country, which is stated in Article 9 of the country's constitution. If the new bill is approved by the cabinet and the Diet, or a reinterpretation of the constitution is given the green light, the country may be able to respond to an ally's request for military assistance. And furthermore, in case of an emergency, it would allow Japan to dispatch its forces first without a parliamentary approval. Nationwide polls show the majority of Japanese citizens are against Abe's move to grant stronger powers to its forces. According to a recent survey by Kyodo, around 50% of respondents said they were against the move, compared to the 39% that said they supported the Prime Minister's plan. Other polls show a similar picture. More than 59% of respondents in a poll by the Asahi Shimbun said they were against the new bill, 2 times more than those who supported it. Around 54% of respondents in a poll by the Nikkei Daily said they did not support Prime Minister Abe's move. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Firefighters are struggling to contain a massive wildfire raging at the edge of California's Yosemite National Park. Officials say the fire, known as the Rim Fire, covers an area of over 520 square kilometers and threatens a major reservoir serving San Francisco. A state of emergency for the city has been declared after power lines providing electricity to the city also threatened by the fire. More than 2,700 firefighters have been deployed to protect the thousands of homes in the fire's path. Officials say the fire is still less than 10% contained, as firefighters are having a hard time tackling the flames because of the steep terrain. In golf, Korean-born New Zealand amateur Lydia Ko has won the LPGA Canadian Women's Open for the 2nd straight year. The 16-year-old successfully defended her title Sunday, closing with a 6-under 64 to finish at 15 under for a 5-stroke victory over France's Karine Isha. Last year in Vancouver, Ko became the youngest winner in LPGA Tour history at 15 years and 4 months old, and also the first amateur winner on the Pro Tour since 1969. The golf prodigy is the first amateur to claim 2 victories in the LPGA Tour. World number 1 Park Geun-hye finished 11 strokes back for a tie for 13th place. The 2013 World Rowing Championships kicked off in the central Korean city of Chungju on Sunday. Hundreds of athletes from around the world will be taking to the water for the next week. Our Kim Hyun-bin was there for the first day of the Games.
Waving flags in the summer breeze creates a perfect atmosphere for athletes to compete in. On your mark, get set, and off they go. Athletes from all around the globe are competing in the 2013 Chungju World Rowing Competition to find the best of the best, with thousands of spectators worldwide as the judge.
The goal is to do as well as my pair partner and I can do in this race. We have individual goals for ourselves, but we'll keep that to ourselves for now. But it's been great coming to Korea. Everyone's been so nice and very helpful. We're excited to get racing started today.
Well, my goal of today's race is to qualify for the semifinals, and it's great to be here all the way from Holland. It's a beautiful course and everything is so well organized. So.
The event, hosted by the International Federation of Rowing Association, began with the opening ceremony Saturday, while the competition started Sunday. There are 27 different rowing categories, including single and double scull and cox pair, among others. Spectators were pleased to see an international competition being held here in Korea.
Korea is hosting the World Rowing Competition, and we live in Chungju, so we decided to come to learn about rowing. The scenery is great as well as the stadium.
Win or lose, athletes and visitors alike will not return home empty-handed, taking back memories. Roughly 1,000 athletes from 75 countries will compete in the 8-day extravaganza, with hopes of taking home the world's rowing title. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Chungju.
The Korean government supports numerous projects overseas that aim to help underprivileged children realize their right for a safe and stable education. One particular program has achieved amazing results, transforming at-risk schools in Latin America into a beacon of hope for students and teachers. Our Paul Yee reports.
Widespread graffiti, metal bars lining hallways, and rampant violence among teenagers. These snapshots provide a glimpse of a troubled school in El Salvador, but in just 3 months, the student body has undergone a dramatic shift in the right direction. The principal of the Joaquin Rodenzno School credits the change in part to a Korean education assistance project.
As a result of these efforts, the students are able to feel the change in their lives. Also, the attitudes of the students have become more positive.
The so-called Brain Education Program was first launched by the Seoul Ministry of Education in cooperation with the Korean Global Cyber University. Korean education experts were sent to 4 pilot schools to provide instruction on stress management, positive social interactions, and improving learning skills. The success has prompted local education officials to expand the Brain Education Program to 180 schools nationwide. Principal Gloria Mueller attended an education symposium in Seoul earlier this month to express her gratitude.
I'm deeply grateful for the Korean government's immense support.
I am happy and thankful that the program has been of help and has expanded to several schools.
The tangible results of the program abroad have even caught the attention of Seoul education authorities.
By taking this approach, students are able to focus when they study. Creating and placing them in this conducive environment helps their minds.
Korean lawmakers are also actively reviewing the program to address problems here at home.
In regards to school violence, certain punishments are dealt out in situations where school violence occurs. These kinds of oriented measures are not able to provide a fundamental solution.
Mueller hopes to take back more locally developed ideas to continue transforming the education system in El Salvador as Korea reflects on its own efforts. Paul Yee, Arirang News.
Well, let's now get an update on the weather with our weathercaster Lee Ji-hyun standing by. Good afternoon to you, Ji-hyun.
Well, happy Monday, guys. Now, after a long monsoon season and scorching summer, the price of vegetables and fruits are on the rise lately.
Yes, I've noticed the higher price of things like cabbage and lettuce. So when I go to the market, what I try and do is buy bigger packages. So it's a bit cheaper to save in bulk, isn't it? Buy in bulk.
I've done that before, and it was just too much for me to eat fresh. So unfortunately, I ended up throwing away most of them.
Oh, well, Yusan, next time you might want to try put them in cold water and add 3 tablespoons of sugar and vinegar. It should help it come alive again. Anyways, doesn't the air feel so much fresher and breezier in the morning hours? But yes, I know, plenty of sunshine continues to bake the nation in the afternoon, and of course, today is not an exception. In fact, the heat wave advisory is still in place for some parts of Gyeonggi, Gangwon provinces, and here in Seoul, and it's beautiful outside. So we're looking at clear skies. It's hot and sunny out there, and it's likely to be sunny all day long. Now, tomorrow's weather will be very much like today's, and it looks like it will stay this hot and sunny till Wednesday, and the rain will strike on Thursday to cool things up. So from Thursday, after the rain, our daytime highs will drop to upper 20s in most regions, but until then, it should be blistering hot in the afternoon. So with that, let's take a look at today's readings. Now, the Seoul and Daegu should have similar daytime highs at 32 degrees Celsius, that's 90 degrees in Fahrenheit, and it looks like Gwangju and Busan will hike up to 31 with lots of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju, Daejeon, and Mount Kumgang will soar to the low 30s, while Dokdo will stay in the late 20s. Now there's a slim chance of passing showers in the inland region, but it should be very sporadic. Now that's all for me today. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and back to you guys in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jiyeon, for the weather there, and those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Join us again tomorrow at the same time at noon here in Seoul.